Let me say thank you to the FBI and the Department of Justice and law enforcement for catching the pipe bomber. By the way, the head of the Oathkeepers is here with us in the audience. Stewart Rhodes is here today. It's not every day, of course. Not every day, of course. Of course, sitting in the front row in the reserved section, which is controlled by my colleagues across the aisle. But yeah, he's here. I mean, I don't know. You have any questions, my colleagues across the aisle, for the head of the Oathkeepers that's sitting in the reserved section of this hearing? I mean, he wasn't pardoned. He's still convicted of seditious conspiracy. Something you guys say didn't happen, right? If there wasn't an insurrection, I don't know how you get convicted of seditious conspiracy.
But yes, not having a pardon. I'm a disabled veteran, service connected. My back was broken in a parachuting accident when I was serving in the Army, and all of that was wiped out. My service-connected disability has been wiped out by the VA. I got a nasty letter saying that I can't even be buried in a veteran cemetery because I'm not pardoned, and I've lost my right to bear arms. I was a concealed carry instructor for years in Nevada, and always responsibly carried concealed my entire life, and so I've lost all my civil liberties other than being free. I'm certainly grateful to be out of prison. But here's the thing that should be said, is that we were the ones who were loyal to President Trump and loyal to our country and went to trial. We did not take a deal. There were 2 Oath Keepers that pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, something that they did not do. None of us were involved in a conspiracy. It was all purely political lawfare. The exact same people who were trying to put President Trump in prison, Jack Smith, Nancy Pelosi, Schiff, all the usual suspects, the same ones, all the ones that Biden pardoned, those are the actual criminals. And their attack on us is absolutely the same as the attack on President Trump. It's all illegitimate political lawfare. We were there doing volunteer security mission, Trump supporters from Antifa. That's why we were there that day. We had 2 permitted events on Capitol grounds, one for Trump, the other one for Ali Alexander's event. And that's what we were doing. But they twisted that into something it wasn't. It was not an attack on democracy or insurrection of any kind. It was simply us trying to do our jobs as volunteer security, as we've done across the country for Trump supporters to the entire administration.
And that loyalty, these are honorable men and women. Yeah, exactly. That loyalty sticks to this day.
Absolutely. I'm still loyal to this country, and I still have faith in President Trump. President Trump's in office again for a very good purpose, is to take down the deep state and restore our republic. And so we are still of one mind on that. Absolutely. Yeah. So President Trump and the American people to understand that all of us, every one of us, are innocent men and women who were there to do honorable work, to do volunteer security. And I put the Proud Boys in the same category. They were there to protect against Antifa violence also, as we've done across the country side by side. So every one of these men and women deserve a pardon because they are innocent. In fact, under the presumption of innocence in our country, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty in front of an impartial jury and also an impartial judge, with actually a fair trial. None of us got that. And so I think that they all deserve to be pardoned on that premise alone, presumption of innocence. But further, it is the same people that they're attacking President Trump. That was the whole point of it, was to get us, try to coerce us into false confessions against ourselves, and then bear false. And we're the ones who did not take a deal. We all went to trial and stood firm. And so I think that just shows our loyalty to our country and loyalty to President Trump. At my sentencing, I looked the judge right in the eye and said, I'm a political prisoner like President Trump. My only so-called crime is opposing those who are destroying our country. And he didn't like that. He gave me 18 years.
Sure he didn't.
Yeah, 18 years, and you weren't even in the Capitol. You didn't even go to the Capitol.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and welcome to Steel News. You are now entering the information war zone. We're going to take you back to January 6th because it's no longer just a date. It is a date that is forever going to go down in infamy, but I also submit to you it is going to be the date that we get our country back, and we're going to celebrate that as our new day of independence because January 6th really is a legal framework and one that did not begin until 2021. The modern January 6th persecutions and the civil lawsuits are built on what, if you consider, were known as the Reconstruction-era enforcement laws. These are statutes that were passed after Civil War that created federally enforceable civil rights and causes of actions that over time, those laws shifted power away from the states, away from the original Bill of Rights framework and towards federal courts, the federal prosecutors and civil litigation, all becoming political enforcement, basically stripping it away from us, we the people. We're the government and we're the law enforcement, and that's where the buck stops. The framework matters. Why? Because it is the same legal architecture now that is being used to keep January 6th alive, along with criminal sentences, even though some of those have actually ended. In the civil cases against President Trump, a federal judge ruled that Trump does not have presidential immunity, not because he was president, but because the court reclassified the alleged conduct as that of an office seeker or a campaign actor, not as an official act within the outer perimeter of presidential authority. And this, of course, was then reflected under a case known as Nixon versus Fitzgerald. And that ruling keeps the door open, not for prison, but for endless civil exposure. And that's why this distinction between commuted and pardoned matters so much. It matters a lot to the J6ers, and you're going to learn more about that today. Essentially, a commutation ends a prison sentence, but it doesn't erase the conviction. A pardon can restore rights, benefits, and legal standing. And for January 6th, many of them were veterans that day. And that difference actually determines whether VA benefits can be fully restored, whether civil cases remain viable, and whether punishment truly ends. And as Stewart Rhodes has said himself, the prison door opened, but the case still lives. So before we go any further, I want you to listen carefully to what Congressman Troy Nehls said in his own words, because in attempting to defend President Trump, he may have unintentionally cemented the very narrative being used against both Trump and Stewart Rhodes.
Why would Trump supporters leave a Trump speech and breach the Capitol grounds before the speech ever ended? I've been to rallies, this and that. When the boss is up there speaking, nobody leaves early. Nobody leaves early. I tell you why, because there was never a call to violence. There was never a call to violence or a call to storm the Capitol. That was something the militia groups are craving and created on their own. The Oathkeepers, Proud Boys, Antifa, 3%ers, bad actors that day, gotta say it, bad actors. They were acting alone and not listening to Trump. Stewart Rhodes stated that if Trump didn't do what they wanted, they would have to do it themselves.
Well, Stewart Rhodes is the founder of the Oathkeepers. He's a Yale-educated constitutional lawyer and a former Army paratrooper. He was convicted of seditious conspiracy related to January 6th. He was sentenced to 18 years, the longest sentence imposed in any J6 case. And despite the fact that he never entered the Capitol, and despite no finding that he personally committed violence that day, he was sentenced to this horrific outcome for which he still has not yet had his rights restored. And in January of 2025, his sentence was commuted to time served. He was released from prison, but not pardoned. And since his release, Rhodes has continued to argue that J6 must be understood in the context of broader constitutional breakdowns, selective law enforcement, and the failure of the federal government to protect citizens' rights during a nationwide unrest. Before I bring him in, I want to play this clip that was taped again, I think it was on Friday with Steve Bannon. And this is where he gets right down to the brass tacks of it all, something that we're facing in certain parts of this country and perhaps maybe in every state in this country. Take a listen.
But I believe President Trump must channel his inner Lincoln and use the Insurrection Act now to defeat the deep state and defeat the ongoing coup that's been going on since 2016. We saw it in 2020. In fact, in 2020, I wrote open letters to President Trump in November, December, and January of 2020, urging him to invoke the Insurrection Act and to take down this Marxist coup that's across our country. And so he needs to do this, and he needs to do it because this is what it takes. This is why the Insurrection Act exists. Lincoln did it in the Civil War. Jefferson signed it into law and used it himself. Grant used it to put down the KKK. JFK used it to desegregate schools. Eisenhower used it in Little Rock, Arkansas. In fact, that's the most direct parallel is what President Eisenhower did when the governor of Arkansas called up his National Guard and deployed them to block the black students from coming in to go to school. Eisenhower nationalized the National Guard of Arkansas, and then he deployed the 101st Airborne to put a stamp on it, 1,000 paratroopers in the streets to escort the kids. And it was actually safer for everyone because after that, no one wants to dance with the 101st Airborne, and the National Guardsmen were not going to go against direct orders of the President of the United States as their commander-in-chief. I think President Trump should follow Eisenhower's example exactly and do exactly the same thing.
Calling for really strong words and a declarative action. Stewart Rhodes joins me now. He's on the road with Ivan Raiklin. Stewart, it's great to have you with me. Thank you so much for taking the time. You have been making the media rounds, and I know your compatriot in the driver's seat. Perhaps it's Elon driving and Ivan is just sitting there. I'm not sure. Has been advocating for all of this. So, Stewart, thanks so much. Strong words from somebody who has not yet received a pardon, basically telling the commander-in-chief, our public servant, what to do here. Explain further, please.
Well, Ivan and I are both acting as if we were President Trump's lawyers. We're advising him. So I'm advising him to fulfill his destiny. Like I told Steve Bannon, Trump, a good analogy is Trump is the plumber. The American people hired him 3 times to drain the swamp. Imagine the crap is like filling our house, and we've hired this guy to come in. And if he doesn't do it, then what's going to have to happen if he leaves office and leaves the deep state as corrupt, horrible cancer in place, then we the people have to fix it. We'll have to resort back to the founders' generation answer, which was they're going to exercise their natural rights of self-preservation in defense of their liberty. And so we'll have to do. As the Declaration says, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is our right to alter or abolish it. And so that's where we're at. We don't want it. We don't want to have to do that ourselves. That's why he's there. He was saved in Butler, Pennsylvania by God for a reason. He's only here because he was spared by the Lord to save this country. And he has to fulfill that destiny. So we want him to channel his inner Patrick Henry, his inner Andrew Jackson, Teddy Roosevelt. He has the courage. I mean, I've got a tattoo on my arm, if you can see this, but I got this tattoo on my arm in prison of President Trump with his fist in the air as his fight, because that's when he reacted like a warrior. He showed courage that day. And that's why he won the election. Across the country, working class men in particular saw that and said, okay, he's legit. So now he has to fulfill. Because right now what's happening, his own base is becoming black-pilled because of the inactivity of his own administration, or even worse, the bad actions of his own administration. The Epstein file has been turned into a horrible debacle, I think because there are bad actors inside his administration yet who have sabotaged him, convinced him to go against that and go back on his campaign promises. So unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, he's going to lose the midterms. GOP is going to lose majority in the House and Senate, and then he'll be impeached. And a big problem he has is that his own base that turned out for him 3 times will not turn out for what they regard as rhinos and globalists in the GOP. And some of them that President Trump himself has endorsed. And so he's heading for a catastrophe. I'm sure he's being sold a bill of goods, but oh no, we're going to do fine in the midterms. He's not going to do fine. We just came back, we're just returning back to the DC area from Richmond, Virginia, where you had, today is legislative day for Virginia for the session and big gun rights rally. And Ivan's been pointing this out, is that with a new governor coming in, a new legislature dominated by Democrats, they're going to redistrict Virginia. The first step they're going to do is redistrict, and they're going to snap up 3 additional seats right there. So you have a tie in Congress. And so they're going to wind up losing the midterms. I believe the rhinos inside, the never-Trumpers, will still hate him inside the Republican Party, don't mind losing the majority because that gets rid of Trump. They'll impeach him. They'll join in on that. He'll be gone. They can kill MAGA and continue on in the grift. That's why he has to do, like I advised him back then in 2020, drop the hammer with vocation of the Insurrection Act, use Minnesota as your start point, but go way beyond that. That's what Ivan and I are writing up right now, is written advice to him about what he can do and why. And the reason why is we got to take the deep state down, use mass declassification and exposure along with the Insurrection Act to expose bad actors, all the corruption everywhere through both sides of Congress, left and right, all the courts, all the governors, all the corrupt judges, expose all of it so the American people can clean house. We want patriots who are still in the Democratic Party, or Tulsi Gabbard style, or Robert Kennedy style Democrats, who are now, being suppressed. We want them to have a chance to run good candidates, root out the bad guys in their own party, and give us in the Republican Party a chance to root out all the traitors inside of our own GOP. So exposure is the first step. Doge everything. Doge was the right track. Yeah.
Doge everything. I couldn't agree more. I mean, some of the stuff I've been working on requires Doge to step in because the criminals is in our government. It is our government. There's very few good people left, and they're surrounded by the criminals. President Trump knows it. This is what he said and not too long ago about the upcoming midterms.
Thanks. But you got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. We don't impeach them. You know why? Because they're meaner than we are. We should have impeached Joe Biden for 100 different things.
He's right. In the civil cases that are stacking up against President Trump, as I said in my opening monologue, these rely on Reconstruction-era statutes. These all happened right after the Civil War. So looking at, and I know you're a constitutional lawyer like Ivan is, but why do you believe laws like that on the books are being revived now? Is it solely just to shut people like you, Ivan, myself, and many others down?
Absolutely. So seditious conspiracy, what I was charged with, was created during the Civil War. It was Lincoln's administration's runaround, a workaround the treason clause. They didn't want to have to go through the treason clause requirements of two witnesses in the same overt act, it's an act element, or confession in open court. So they created the seditious conspiracy law to get at anybody in the North who was supporting the South. And you look at that statute, it has no act element at all.
It has no what element? I'm sorry?
No act element.
No act. Okay.
So the treason clause says that it defines treason as making war against the United States or aiding its enemies, and then it requires a civilian trial from a jury, and it requires two witnesses to the same overt act. So it has an act element with a burden of two witnesses. Nowhere else in the law do you see that, because the founders knew what it was like to be accused falsely of treason, right? So they wanted to put that to a stop. So to circumvent that, this is one of the bad things Lincoln did, is he, the Republican Party, passed the seditious conspiracy statute. It sat around all those years, and then they dusted it off and used it against us. It has no act element, and the jury was told, it basically says, if you find that two or more persons agreed to resist with force the authority of the United States government, you may find them guilty of seditious conspiracy. No requirement that they take any steps, actual concrete actions in furtherance. Also, because it's a Civil War statute, has been updated to take into account the First Amendment protections, like the Brandenburg versus Ohio case, right? Where the Supreme Court created a shelter for political speech. It said, hey, speech is protected unless it's inciting imminent violence or imminent unlawful activity that's also likely to occur. Two steps. Imminent activity that's unlawful, likely to occur. That created a shelter. That was done to help, it was a KKK case, but before that, statutes that they were using, there were syndicalism statutes passed in the states to get at communists originally. So the court wiped out those statutes through the KKK. It was a KKK member. Brandenburg versus Ohio was one of those cases where the ACLU was standing up for a KKK guy because it was free speech. So the problem is that instruction was never given to the jury. The judge never said, hey, understand that in Brandenburg versus Ohio, speech is protected unless you can show that it incited imminent unlawful activity also likely to occur. That instruction, I was screaming to my lawyers, that needs to be part of our instructions. They wouldn't listen to me, and the judge, of course, doesn't want to listen to me. So that's how it went down. And here's another point, though. The KKK Act, that was passed, Reconstruction, that was used against President Trump, and he's still in active civil litigation. In fact, we're co-defendants right now. There's two cases still going through the courts in front of Judge Mehta, same one that put me in prison for 18 years. There's two civil cases, starting out with a lawsuit against President Trump, County, Oathkeepers and Proud Boys, by members of Congress, and another one almost identical by Capitol
Stuart,
in
we're
the
losing you.
KKK Act.
Okay. Sorry, we lost you for a second, but I got you back.
Yeah, so the allegation, absurd allegation, was that President Trump is the kingpin, we're his lieutenants, and we all
Right.
conspired together to disenfranchise black people in violation of the KKK Act.
So let me ask you something, because Troy Nehls, Congressman Nehls, recently, I think it was last week, said that the militias acted independently and weren't listening to Trump. How did
Yeah.
you interpret that? I mean, what is he
Well, what he
driving
just
at?
did-
Is that a double-edged sword? That is he exonerating Trump, but then also leaving a back door open to put Trump on the chopping block in the civil litigation
Yes.
again?
Yes, both. He is
Okay.
actually, in the military, there's a term called Blue Falcon, which stands for buddy effort. So that's
Oh.
what he is. So he just affirmed and endorsed and adopted 90% of Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson's nonsense, complete false allegations in their J6 Select Committee in 2022, the false narrative. He went 90% of the way. He said, oh, there really was a conspiracy. Oh, the Proud Boys and Oathkeepers really did plan to attack the Capitol. That's what he's saying. But he's like, oh, but President Trump wasn't involved. Well, I'm sure Jamie Raskin and Moskowitz, who you played earlier, I'm sure they're giddy to have Troy Nehls on their side for affirming 90% of what they want. All they got to do is just add Trump as a cherry on top. So
Right.
he's just, he just basically screwed President Trump over also by doing this. If he doesn't know, we're still co-defendants. The Proud Boys and Oathkeepers, Enrique Tarrio and myself, are co-defendants right now in those civil cases. And all that's going to do is when they go to, if they regain the House and Senate again, what they're going to do is impeach President Trump, and they'll point right back to, they'll probably quote Troy Nehls and say, look, even a Republican agrees there really was an insurrection. So he just threw all those J6s under the bus. I mean, he's a Republican from Texas. I've been on speaking tours for the True Texas Project all over Texas, talking to the rank and file, including in his own district. I'm sure they're all pretty pissed off at him. So I don't know what's going on inside of his head. Either he's an idiot or he's been compromised and is complicit. And yes, in the long run, it will take down President Trump too.
So is it in your belief then that this is how the narrative was engineered from the start? This
Yes.
is the grand design?
Absolutely, because that
Do you
lost
think
it by
that, do you think that, I'm sorry, one more question, follow up this, and you can roll it all together. But by the Reconstruction Acts, to you, does that seem like they left a sort of a trapdoor, backdoor for them to come back in and declare people insurrectionists to put us down if we were exercising our First Amendment in a peaceful way, and they could somehow, construe this conspiracy that we were the ones creating the insurrection when in fact it was them?
Well, sure. That's what they did, and that's what they could continue to do. The argument is still being made. The lawfare will continue. We had a brief reprieve when God saved President Trump, and then he was elected again. We have a brief reprieve to defeat the deep state. If you don't defeat them, they're going to come back. They're already saying it. They're going to come back with a vengeance, and they're going to drive on. They're saying and openly saying that their mistake was not putting more of us in prison, not just the J6ers, but everyone on the political right. So they're going to go, it's going to be Katie bar the door, the gloves are going to come off, and why shouldn't they? Kash Patel's done nothing. He didn't fire the 5,000 FBI agents who were sent across the country to persecute all of us, are still on the job, except for the ones that got fired because they were spying on members of Congress. That's the only time they get fired. But violating our rights, they're still on the job. The DOJ is still full of all the prosecutors who persecuted all of us. Jocelyn Ballantyne, right? For example, she persecuted General Flynn and she persecuted the Proud Boys. She suborned perjury in the Proud Boys case. In fact, she's been caught red-handed. Enrique Tarrio was offered by her. He could go home if he was signed a confession that he was committing insurrection and that President Trump told him to go in the building. He could have gone home if he signed that. And Jeremy Bertino, a Proud Boy that turned on his brother Proud Boys and bore false witness against them, has admitted since then that yes, he was pressured, threatened with life in prison, and coerced into a confession and then false testimony. So she's already been caught red-handed supporting perjury. Why is she not being charged for that? Why is she not at least being fired? But no, they put her as a lead prosecutor in yet another persecution of an innocent man, Brian Cole, the so-called pipe bomber. That's why we were there. That's why I was there the other day. I believe that he is being used as a patsy to cover for the deep state, and it's exactly what was done to me. You have a congressional hearing tainting your reputation, polluting the jury pool in advance of your trial while you're in solitary confinement. the exact same thing was done to me and my co-defendants. So that's why we were there the other day. I believe that man is innocent. I think the real bomber was already exposed by Steve Baker. They're covering for their coup. So you have members of the Trump administration not just not doing their job, actively supporting the ongoing coup by covering for the red flag of the false flag of the pipe bomb on J6.
So what does it look like for you, Stewart? And I know Ivan is sitting there if he wants to chime in to share the camera, but you all are on a mission. You're going around, you're exposing this, you're attending all these hearings. I saw you sitting back there. I saw Ivan holding up Shawnee's name during the hearing. And it was you all are doing everything you possibly can, short of walking into President Trump's office and say, hey, man, I just want to remind you, you work for us. And here's the real lay of the land. If you were to walk into that office, I know, believe me, I wish you could too. But if you did walk
tomorrow, we're going to get real close.
Sorry?
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to get real close. We're going to go in front of the White House and hold a press conference. Yeah.
Fantastic. Who all is going to be at your press conference?
Well, we're going to invite the media, and we're hoping that Enrique Tarrio can come up and join us. Because a message from myself as the leader of the Oathkeepers and from Enrique as the leader of the Proud Boys is that, hey, we're in the streets all through your administration protecting your supporters from Antifa. We had to go do that ourselves in the street. We are sending a message to you that you must drop the hammer with the Insurrection Act, put down the insurrection in Minnesota, or it's going to get exponentially worse. The summer of 2026 is going to be like the summer of 2020, but on steroids. It's going to be far more violent. More Americans are going to die. You're going to have open insurrection, even more so than before, because the bad guys are seeing inaction by the Trump administration. So now they're like, we got nothing to lose. They're not going to do anything. They're basically punking President Trump.
If you're going to replace people in the Trump administration, who are you replacing and why? And with whom would you replace them?
Okay, so I think you should fire Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche. Like I said, not just because of inaction, but they're participating in the railroading of another man, an innocent man, to cover up for the coup. Judge Jeanine, same thing. Kash Patel, I'm glad Bongino's gone. Both of them I consider traitors because they're carrying the water for the deep state and covering for it. Oh, the Butler assassination attempt, that investigation's closed because the shooter's dead. That's what they said on TV. And then Kash Patel, when it was finally disclosed by a member of Congress that there were 274 undercover FBI in the crowd on J6, Kash Patel says, oh, they were there being improperly used for crowd control. That's how he spun that and covered for it. So he is carrying the water of the deep state.
Jolene.
Yeah.
Jolene Ann Loria. Are you familiar with that name, Ann?
Oh yes, you've been stalking certain people, Ivan.
So Jolene Ann Loria is Assistant Attorney General over at the Department of Justice. She is the deep state of the heart of the deep state at DOJ. Because you got to remember, Pam's only been there for a year. Todd's only been there for a year, less than both of them. The person that's been there for 19 years as the comptroller, managing all money, heading up all HR, formerly heading up the IT infrastructure at the DOJ, meaning she has all the information related financial transactions in the department and leveraging that relationship with both political parties of the Congress for the budgeting process for the DOJ and any and all dirt within the IT infrastructure at DOJ. She's got it. Jolene Ann Loria. So she has it all. If we can get her to squirm, I think we showcase the whole house of cards.
Well, the continued pressure campaign is going to ensue. What besides a press conference at the White House? I'm sure you're going to have a great turnout. I wish I could be there. I'm out in Colorado, helping family with some stuff and working from here. But tell me,
Tina Peters from us.
I'm going to go.
Speaking of Colorado,
100% going to go see Tina. That's on my bucket list.
Speaking of which, Ivan and I are of one mind on this. President Trump should send the U.S. Marshals to go. She's a material witness in federal crimes. Go pick her up. They do it all the time. They go into state penitentiaries and say, hey, this guy's a material witness. We're going to take him into federal custody.
Right.
And they do it all the time. And he's pardoned her. And so he should operate under the assumption, I don't see the Supreme Court case that says he can't do that. So until the Supreme Court says he can't, he should operate under the assumption that he can. And I think it's a mistake to go hat in hand to some state court judge or even a federal judge and ask for them to recognize the president's power. Just go do it. Let them fight in the court to get her back. Put her in a Lincoln bedroom. Make sure she's safe.
So, Ivan, you're another constitutional attorney. Do you contend the same, that Trump should act in that authority?
That's more diplomatic than the way I would do it, but I'll just say that I agree 100% with Stewart on that.
I mean, hey,
Okay.
sitting in the U.S. Marshals backed up by Delta Force. If they can go get Madero out of Venezuela, they can go get Tina Peters out of Colorado.
I think
Exactly.
so too. I think so too. God bless
Just
her.
do it.
She has been
Just do it.
incredible. And look, the idea that our elections were not stolen or were not tampered with has now been thoroughly debunked. They have been. We have the evidence. Thousands and thousands of election integrity groups all over this country have proven that. And then we have whistleblowers coming out of the woodworks from all over the place proving it. So Tina Peters did her job. And it was proven in that hearing last week that, they coerced the jury into hearing false testimony. Really, they weren't getting the real picture. So the whole thing is an abomination. She's a misdemeanor at worst right now, and frankly, she should be free for time served. She should have everything expunged. It's disgusting. But Stewart, listen, you continue on as a commuted. If you walked into Trump's office today and he hasn't pardoned you to restore your, not only your rights but also the entitlements you're supposed to receive as a veteran, how would you plead that case for him right now?
I'd say, President Trump, we were the ones who were most loyal to you. In fact, there were 2 Oathkeepers who pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, lied and signed false statements that said that I told them to go inside. They furthered the false narrative they were loyal to the lie. They got no prison time. Judge Meadow gave me 18 years, gave them nothing but probation in December 2024. And then when President Trump came in, those 2 men got pardons. So 2 guys who became traitors to this country and to President Trump were pardoned. But those of us who were loyal and went to trial and refused to give an inch, I told the jury that was a stolen, unconstitutional, illegal election. Told the judge at my sentencing, I said, looked him right in the eye and said, I'm a political prisoner like President Trump. My only crime is opposing those who are destroying our country. And I also said, my oath will not let me shut my eyes to the plain text of Article 2. That was an unconstitutional election. And I said, that's what I said at my sentencing. And he gave me 18 years. I really pissed him off. But I always told President Trump, we are loyal and we were innocent. We were there doing volunteer security for 2 permitted events on Capitol grounds. They just used our free speech against us. At the very end of it, for all the dog and pony show and accusations, the jury was instructed that you may infer an implied conspiracy to have been formed unspoken as the Oathkeepers walked up the steps to disrupt Congress. That's what they were told. And of course, our guys, when they went inside, helped Harry Dunn. They helped police officers inside multiple times. All of that was twisted, and Harry Dunn lied on the stand. Lazarus, the other officer, lied on the stand together. They've been caught. Steve Baker caught them both lying on the stand. They showed that Lazarus was actually in the tunnels under the Senate when they said they were together. So both of them lied on the stand, caught red-handed in perjury. So the whole thing was as corrupt and as illegitimate as all the false allegations against President Trump. And he knows this. That's why he called us hostages. I believe he knows that. So I would just say, President Trump, we are your most loyal defendants, most loyal soldiers. And we did not, we were advocating for the slates to be returned to the states. We were advocating back then, I was advocating for him to use the Insurrection Act and mass declassification. I'm a broken record when it comes to that. I'm saying the same thing now because it's the 2 things he has in his hands. And I would tell him this also. I would say if I had to choose between getting a pardon and him invoking the Insurrection Act, taking down the deep state, I would choose that. I'll give up my rights if you do the right thing. That's what I would tell him. It's not about me. It's about our country.
What do you say to some people? I'm going to pull this up on the screen here because this is a tweet that went out, I guess it was last night. It's out from the Patriot Voice, John Sable. He's out there suggesting that many MAGA conservatives are now in favor of the very same things that true conservatives, myself included, meaning John, were terrified of and were consistently warning about 15 years ago. Case in point, putting the military on the streets of America for any reason. It would have been an unthinkable scenario back in 2009 after Obama had just taken power. Fast forward to 2026, and we're facing the same reality with Trump. But MAGA is quite literally on its knees begging for extreme government overreach. Not only is this extremely hypocritical, but it is extremely dangerous. Now you are berated as low IQ, communist, traitor, retard, etc., for not wanting said government overreach or protesting in opposition of it, even though it was our own government which created the necessary conditions for it in the first place. It's completely preposterous and insane. And he goes on to just basically talk about the Hegelian dialect. And he says, so far as using Palantir tech to target citizens and non-citizens as justification for police state apparatus, normalizing ICE harassing American citizens for proof of immigration and or citizenship papers. And then he goes on and, on the surveillance state. He's talking about, the military. Would you say that invoking the Insurrection Act would run afoul to this post here of what he's talking about, or how can you separate it so that people don't feel like if we were to invoke the Insurrection Act that we would be falling under a more of a police state, because that would just sort of remain the status quo and we should just expect to see people walking around our streets in military and ARs, et cetera?
So what I would say is, first of all, the Insurrection Act was signed into law by Thomas Jefferson, who used it. Then you had Lincoln use it. Then you had Grant use it against the KKK. Then you had Eisenhower use it when the National Guard of Arkansas was called up by the Arkansas governor to block black students from entering the schools after the Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, 1957. Right. So they said, block the schools. So Eisenhower nationalized the Arkansas National Guard, brought them under his command, invoked the Insurrection Act, and deployed the 101st Airborne to escort the kids into the schools. Then JFK used it to enforce desegregation of schools. And then you had LBJ doing it. In fact, LBJ did it to protect Martin Luther King and his marchers. People don't even know that. So when Martin Luther King, it's Martin Luther King Day today, Martin Luther King was protected by LBJ as president by invoking the Insurrection Act to protect. Throughout our history, the majority of times it's been used has been to protect Americans from their rights violated by corrupt Democrats. It's ironic, isn't it? So that's what we're facing now. What I also tell that guy is that's why it has to be paired. I agree. I don't like Palantir. That's why I don't trust J.D. Vance at all, because he's Palantir's boy. He's Peter Thiel's boy. That's how he got there. That's who he is. That's why Palantir is building all these data centers in a surveillance state. That's why it can't just be the invocation of the Insurrection Act and then we go into, Terminator land with Palantir. I agree. That's why it has to be turn that power on the deep state. That's the real enemy. The real enemy of all of the American people, including all the lefties in the streets, are being used as cannon fodder. They're being brainwashed, hate their own country. I'd say this guy's kind of the same way. We have faced an open invasion of this country. They flooded us with the third world for the same purposes that Europe is being flooded also, is to destroy and wipe out Western civilization. That's what they're doing. And they will enslave all of those people. You're not doing the illegal aliens any favor by letting them stay here to be used as a manipulation and a method taking down our country. Because all be enslaved too. So to free the world, in the end, it's the people of the planet. This is a very tiny group of corrupt, evil elites. To take them down, that's what you use the Insurrection Act in conjunction with the absolute power. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who I trust, go and take the lead. Speaking of who people I trust, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, within that limited function of what he's doing, go and take control of the CIA building, FBI, NSA, DOJ, all of it. Send all the employees home. We don't need to do any more work. All they're doing is destroying our country anyway. Send them all home on paid leave, and then bring in military intelligence to help Tulsi Gabbard sort through. Leave classified was legitimate, everything else exposed. Just like Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter, he threw the doors open and showed you all the dirt. Do the exact same thing, but do it for the entire government, all three branches, judiciary, all the corrupt judges, executive and legislative. And let the chips fall where they may on both sides. And here's an important point that we're going to make tomorrow in our press conference. This gives us, we the people, before our primaries, a chance to identify the traitors of all the American people, all the pedophiles, all the sex traffickers, all the ones that are complicit in all of that, all the ones that are complicit in fentanyl being brought in here and killing American citizens, got money from China or money from Israel for that matter. Anybody who's on the take from a foreign government, expose them all so that we the people can purge them out, Democrats and Republicans, in our primaries. That's what I would say to him. This is about taking down the deep. Don't you understand? The deep state is going to kill our republic, going to enslave all of us unless we take them down. So worrying about civil liberties, I'm not worried about the civil liberties of the deep state. That's what I tell him. Let's focus on them.
That's right.
It's not really for the cannon fodder in the streets of Minnesota. You got crazy Karens being used as cannon fodder. It's not really about them. Aim it at the actual deep state.
Yeah. Well, Stewart, I think what you're talking about is getting right back to basics here. The old Constitution, it's a pretty small little piece of paper on,
Right.
it takes about 40 minutes if you really want to go deep on it and read it. You can
Speaking of which, let me just say this.
Sure.
Also, I would tell that guy, look at Article 1, Section 8. It says Congress has the power to provide for calling forth the militia.
That's right.
For three purposes: to repel invasions, suppress insurrections, and to execute the laws of the Union. The militia, and the National Guard's part of the militia. The rest of us we the people, are part of the militia too.
Right.
So I would say call all of us up, have us all stand to in our counties, organize, all of us veterans like Ivan and myself, take charge of the other men and train them and get them ready. That's who keeps the peace across the country.
That's well-regulated. That's a well-regulated militia.
That's right.
That's right. That's why you're called the Oathkeepers.
17 to 45.
That's right.
Are all citizens.
By federal statute to this day, every able-bodied male from age 17 to 45 is the militia, and us veterans can be called up until age 64.
That's fantastic. Great to hear.
So it still is. Yeah.
Stewart, Ivan, thank you so much for your time today. This is exciting. I'm glad. Give us the details on your press conference again, please. Give us where people can find you, where you're going to be streaming it. I'd be happy to stream it on my channel as a co-streamer for you, whatever. But date, time, where you're going to be.
We'll be right outside the White House in Lafayette Park, right there in front of the fence at 10 a.m. And Ivan, you can go to @Ivan Raiklan on X, and I'm on X now again. Finally, I'm at Real Oathkeepers. We'll be live streaming. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you want to support my work, you can go to givesendgo.com/oath. I would appreciate the support. Keeps me going. I'm rebuilding Oathkeepers, and we're going to get, it's really frustrating to see Americans being attacked in the streets. I don't have the manpower to go protect them. So I'm going to rebuild the organization. We'll get back at it.
I love it. Stewart, thank you so much. You
Thank
are
you.
a fearless patriot. God bless you for the work you're doing, all the media interviews to get the information out there. I'll do my best. Ivan, if you want me to stream it on my channel as well, I'll make sure to repost for you. But if you want an extra outlet, I've got 7 or 8 I can stream to. So happy.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break. I've got another guest coming up here, so stick with me. Thank you, Stewart, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow on your live stream.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ann.
All right. Well, wow. Powerful interview. I hope that President Trump, I hope whoever's watching this will cut certain clips out of this and send it, tag President Trump, because what Stewart was saying, it really needs to be sent directly to the president, because January 6th didn't end with the last sentence that was served. As you can see, we're still living through it. As long as we have convictions like Stewart remaining unpardoned, like Joe Biggs remaining unpardoned, as long as these civil cases remain open, as long as the Reconstruction-era laws are used as political enforcement tools, this story is still going to remain unfinished. Stewart Rhodes may be out of prison, but the legal architecture that put him there is still very much intact, and we're seeing it. And he's talking about targeting the deep state with the Insurrection Act. And this, what you just watched, should concern every American. It should concern every one of us. It doesn't matter what party. This is a nonpartisan issue. So we've got another guest coming up here. We know that January 6th exposed what happens when accountability collapses at the federal level. That's clear. Our next guest is running because Michigan can't afford the same collapse at the state level. I'm going to run a quick sponsor commercial before we bring in our next guest. So stick with me. We'll be right back.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your MyPillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
MyPillow.com.
Mid-Michigan. I'm Chadwick Twillman, your Mid-Michigan First candidate for Senate 35. Our Tri-Cities, Bay City, Saginaw, and Midland, once dominated the Great Lakes with shipbuilding, oil, gas, and fishing. That legacy was stolen by polluters, red tape, and weak leadership. SB 10, the Tri-Cities Maritime Revival Act, brings it back. Bigger, stronger, and 100% American. With the $8 million MARAD grant, SB 10 adds $4 to $6 million state funds, no tax hikes, to train 500 workers in shipbuilding, offshore rigs, LNG, and fishing. We're deregulating to cut EGLE red tape 50% and launch shipyards faster than ever, exceeding our 19th century dominance.
Well, while Washington obsesses over power, prosecutions, and political theater, real battles for this country are being fought much closer to home, at the state level, where policy actually touches people's lives. Michigan has become ground zero for some of the most aggressive uses of government power in the nation, from COVID mandates and election disputes to education policy, parental rights, and the erosion of constitutional limits. This afternoon, we're going to turn our focus to Michigan State Senate District 35, where Chadwick Twillman is running not as a career politician, but as a citizen stepping forward because the system has failed to represent the people it governs. Chadwick is campaigning on restoring constitutional boundaries, defending individual liberty, and reasserting state sovereignty against federal overreach at a time when state legislatures are either the last line of defense or the final point of surrender. Joining us now is Michigan State Senate candidate Chadwick Twillman. Chadwick, it is great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I went to your website and I've looked at it over the weekend. You've got a lot of stuff you're already proposing in terms of Senate bills, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, why did you decide to run and why Michigan?
Yeah. You can hear me all right with no echo, right?
Sound great.
All right. Well, first of all, Michigan, I'd only been in Michigan a year, less than a year, when I realized that the place that I moved to had a vacant seat and there was nobody representing us. This is where I decided to lay my roots, raise my family. I have 5 kids, bought my first house ever in my life, my wife and I. And this is where we're raising our family. And then we realized there's no representation. That was just about 21 days into it. And I went down to the Republican Party locally and said, hey, who can I support? I want to make videos for this person, make it aware, make sure that we have good representation. And they told me that they didn't have anybody. So we spoke for a little while and they were really excited in the things that I was speaking, that I was talking about, my ideas, and how uniting the party, because they're telling me there's a lot of in-house fighting going on between the 3 cities of the Republican Party locally. As we spoke about that, through their excitement, I went home and just prayed about it, who would be good for this seat? And through those prayers over, I would say, the next 4 to 5 days, I just kept on hearing, step up, give yourself. This is what I've been shaping and molding you for your whole entire life, Chadwick.
Civic duty, Chadwick. Okay, keep going.
Civic duty, that's right. And, someone who I have a lot of admiration for, a great patriot and hero, General Flynn. And I've been grateful to cover him through different events, through my media. And one thing that stands out in his message is local action equals national impact.
Right.
And God bless Stewart Rhodes and Ivan Raiklan putting the pressure on that national level. But it does take someone at the local level too to make sure, because it's out of hand here. And I didn't really realize how out of hand it is until I put my name on the ballot and started realizing it. So I went down and found out that I can run. Back when I was 20 years old, I became a felon for helping a girl that was being raped. And that's a whole different story, but it's can I be a felon? Okay, that's okay. I'm the age limit. I have all the qualifications. I needed to go down, pay the fee. I stepped up and I gave myself willingly that I'm willing to represent the people that have no representation here. Because there's a political play going on where the governor, Governor Gretchen, was allowing this special election not to be called, even though herself became governor through a special election, because now the Republicans were down 1 seat. Before, we were down 2 seats because the person that left it vacant was a Democrat, right. Kristen McDonald-Rivet. And she decided that she didn't no longer want to represent the people that elected her, but choose for a higher up position maybe, and went somewhere else in Congress at the national level. And you know what? Left these people vacant. It's now become a historic vacancy. Never in our nation's history has a Senate seat been vacant this long. So I went down there. I became the only person on the ballot for 5 months before she called it. No one else stepped up during this time where there was no vacancy. And that's why I have so many bills.
Because you've been busy. You've bills as in ones you're writing for Michigan, for the state legislature. So I want to talk a little bit about, the fact that we're looking at state power versus federal overreach. And we're seeing the federal government has basically consumed our republic. We really rarely depend on our states for anything anymore. We're always looking to the federal shiny light over there to see what Mother May I will give us next. The nanny state is in full force right now. And your state, Michigan, became a testing ground for the emergency powers during COVID. I want to talk about that because, the emergency powers were really abused. And we saw thousands, tens of thousands of elderly put into homes where COVID was running rampant and they were basically sentenced to death. So what lessons should never ever be forgotten, and what safeguards must be put into place to prevent something like that from ever happening again, particularly in your state where you've got tyranny reigning supreme there?
Yes. Well, I have proposed also one of the bills, my 12th bill is a Medical Freedom Act. And I believe that we have our constitutional rights that are given to us by our God-given rights is what they really are, right? And never should we be in a position where we are forced to do anything over that doesn't harm us. We're not harming somebody else. We shouldn't be forced to wear a mask, shouldn't be forced to be injected with any type of medicine that we don't want. At the same time, in this bill, it gives the people the protection. If they feel like something is necessary for their health, they could go ahead and use it. But it just shouldn't be forced one way or another. You have sovereignty over your own body, over your own soul, over your own practices, as long as it doesn't trample over other people's rights.
Right.
So I think this is a big one. And this comes into place just kind of like at the end of Stewart Rhodes. You asked a very great question about the Insurrection Act and what's the fear of it becoming a police state. And I think it's put in place, and it's the responsibility becomes on the voter to know who you're voting for and who you're electing, because you can't elect someone that would abuse such power and just use it and have it be a police state all over the country where it's not normal. No, these are for specific interactions, specific out-of-hand situations that's gone on in our country that it does need to be used for. It does need to wrap up and control the out-of-control situations. So it relies very importantly on who you elect. And we have a responsible president with Donald Trump that is not going to abuse these type of powers. But somebody like Biden who has an auto pen, you got to be very careful who you elect. And this goes all the way down to the local level. Right now, we have people who don't even know what they're running for, much less people know what they're voting for in this election. And I want to make this special point that I'd like to reiterate before we end as well later on. But first of all, let me make this point that this is a special election. And to the other candidates, you are not running for a full term. You are running to end a 4-year term that's only about 6 to 7 months. So the person going in, now I'm talking to the voter, who you're voting for, that person better have a plan when they get in there for this 7 months. Otherwise, this historic vacancy goes in vain, and it really did have no representation. And I'll tell you what, if you vote for anybody else, there is no plan. They're talking about the generic mumbo jumbo that you hear from everybody. We're going to lower taxes. That's a full term plan. Don't be talking about that for a special election, because you cannot complete that in the 7 months, especially when you don't have any plan to do. Are you
saying all the bills you have proposed can be completed within 7 months?
I do. There's single issue bills that are directly for our district. I'm not trying to get a deal with this person to earn a vote or add this stuff to earn a vote. The other senators, both Democrat and Republican, understand that District 35 has gone the short end of the stick, and we have had no representation, and they have on both sides have let me know they do want to help. They do want to get bills passed. And so I've written these single issue bills all directly in each category: infrastructure, schooling, justice, all these main core principles where I don't really need to spend the time going after the extreme issues. Right. There's enough stuff
the
there.
headline issues, essentially, which is what everybody's using, throwaway headlines. Oh, we're going to eliminate property tax. Well, how are you going to do that exactly? If you don't come out with your plan, you're just selling people something just to grab a vote without actually having them look under the hood to see how you're going to deliver on that. I want to ask you something, because the state legislatures, from where I'm seeing, seem to have abdicated their constitutional role and sort of said, hey, federal agencies and unelected bureaucrats, take it over from here. Do you see it the same way? And if you do, how can you fix it?
Yeah, it's really tough. What I'm seeing getting in here is there is no structure, there is no plan. There's people running around, a lot of in-house fighting, and they've given up. The people that want to help have almost just let the powers be that are be here.
Sure.
I see there's a lot of patriotic souls here in Michigan that are awakening to the truth. It's not just the good guy government who you think is the good guy and has your best interests.
Right.
There's people behind the scenes that are making deals without the public's best interest. And it's generations of bloodlines that are just, sorry, I don't know if you could hear that. I can't hear anything. That's my clock. We will make America great again.
Oh, yeah.
Trump, it must be the top of the hour, 2 minutes till. Trump every hour screams, we will make America great again. So my kids get to hear it all day long, every hour.
That's great. That's great.
But what I see here is now, as I said earlier, I was the only candidate for 5 months. I didn't get in because there was an election. I got in because there was a problem and I seen it could be fixed. And I wanted to that was my first goal of representing the people, is getting a special election. The other 3 candidates, they jumped in at the last second. It was like literally the last week that they jump in. And these people don't have a plan. But now the local Republican Party is saying there's only 3 Republican candidates. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one of them. They're saying that they're holding public forums. Come listen to all 3 Republican candidates. They've done this multiple times. Come listen to this podcast where we're having all 3 Republican candidates. It's the other 3 Republican candidates, 2 of them backed by big corporate money, Dow money, which is in one of the bills I'm going over to hold accountable, because they've polluted our waterways with dioxins. And 2 of our 2 waterways go the most 2 polluted are right here in our district. And it's right from Dow Chemical that makes the plastics. We want to support them, and help them, but we don't want them polluting our water. So they're in this bill, it's 75% of the cleanup, and they're going to help dredge the rivers deeper so we can have good shipping lanes.
Okay.
We have to have a good strategy for replacing revenue when we get rid of the taxes, and we got to have our own shipping. We can have our own tariffs. This type of strategy, energy independent, where we have new solutions like Energy 3, where it is free and independent. Tesla did have real energy solutions where we don't have to pay for it. So it just takes a brave senator that isn't held by the strings, isn't controlled, is actually for the people, that could introduce some of these ideas locally. And hey, if they work, great. Let's apply them even greater across the state or the nation. And then at the same time, this is only a 7-month period of time. If you don't like me or I didn't succeed, vote someone else. But these candidates need to realize, and the people that you're voting for, or the people voting, need to realize you're only voting them for 7 months, and they might not be the same person that you vote for 7 months later for the full 4 term. So this candidate is going to go in, and now he's still going to be campaigning for 7 months. He's not going to be writing new plans. He's got to keep up with his votes on the current votes
And what
going
you're
on.
saying is what you're saying is you've already thought this through. You have them posted on your website. What is your website address again?
ChadwickTwillman.com. My
That's
first
easy.
name and last name. Oh, and on the bottom ticker, you missed the W. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to do, but it's.
Did I write Tillman? I'm so sorry. I'll
Yeah,
fix that.
it's okay.
I'll fix that here in a second. No, I'm glad I know it's Twillman, but I must have just typoed it.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think I was probably typoing when I didn't have my my eyeballs in. Listen, I want to run through a couple issues really fast because we're getting short on time here.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
the Michiganders have always felt really locked out of decisions involving their children. And we've
Yeah.
seen a lot of stories come out of there. Where do you stand on parental rights in education?
Oh, what a great question. I'm glad you asked. I'm a very big opponent for bringing it back to the parents' rights. I believe we should eliminate the Department of Education. It's not needed. It's hindrance. It gives guidelines that in fact, my Democrat opponent, the top runner for the Democrats, Pamela Pugh, is the head of the Department of Education. She's the one that had all that controversy a couple months back where it went viral, where she was voting for these transsexual books inside the schools and the transsexual freedom and that kind of stuff. All that ABC, LGBTQ stuff. I'm not for that. I have 5 kids all the way to the point, and you know this, but to the viewers and to the people that are voting for me, I delivered my last 3 children myself here at home with my wife, because we don't believe in the tyranny that the hospitals are restricting on the people, where they're forcing and mandating shots as soon as your baby comes out. And I made that decision with my firstborn, where 3 days later, I'm in tears looking at my son. And I feel him talking to me saying, "Don't let them take me." And they came with administrators, doctors, through 3 days, nurses, all the way to cops, and threatening CPS if I don't give my son up to go get what could be a disease. And luckily that same day blood work came back, because I allowed them to take blood work, and if there was something, that he was fine. So we got to stand strong. I'm going to be bringing a Doge type mentality to the medical system. And from the top down all the way to the morgue, we're going to see where the funding is going. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to give the power back to the parents when it comes to the schools. We don't need this type of indoctrination. I'm a big opponent of all that stuff. I'm going to be fighting very hard for it.
What about in your district, including the working families, the small businesses, the agricultural communities? What policies matter most to them right now?
Yeah, right now I'm talking to a farmer right now. I visit with him often, and they're the backbone, like the trucker. And you and I, we've been part of supporting the truckers for some time. We know they're the backbone of this country. It's what feeds us, and we got to support what makes our country go round and what works. And the farmers is upon the top priority, the teachers, the farmers. And we got to help make sure that they have the right resources to produce the crops that they need. We got to make sure that their boundaries are protected, because right now they're getting sold out to boundary lines because of they'll bring in immigration. When I'm seeing this state was a big opponent. We had safe cities that luckily I came in. I helped voted and rally up with the mayor of Bay City. Bay City was a safe harboring city for immigrants, sanctuary city. That got eliminated. But there was a lot of immigration, illegal immigration, because immigration's good, but illegal immigration here into our district. And now they're trying to take and steal the farmland so they could just pop up these little houses and little communities to put people in. We got to protect their land. We got to protect all land, including the hunters and all agriculture. Big opponent, big advocate.
All right. Lastly, I want to ask you about inflation, regulation and energy policies, because these affect everybody, Michiganders, they affect everybody around the country, but particularly in your district, as you said, that district has been abandoned. You haven't had anybody in the seat advocating on behalf of the Michiganders. So what can your state Senate realistically do to help along the lines of inflation, regulation, and energy policies?
Yeah, well, just off the start, first of all, we could be a part of the votes, because right now our district has no say so. So all the votes that have been going on, and where there is a big part of a senator's job is to go there and say, hey, this money that's allotted, we're going to take our portion. We need it for this. We haven't had someone there to advocate for our portion here to keep our district floating and being where it needs to be. There's been some bills that have been put in place, luckily, with better administrations that have safeguarded if there is no representation, at least the school district or the schools get this. But majority of it, we've had no representation. I think it's very important that we're energy dominant and that we could make sure that we lower our taxes without causing big time inflation, excuse me. And we do that by replacing, we have these solar grids in Michigan. We have a big plant that invests tons of money in having fields of solar. It's cloudy right now. It's cloudy almost every day.
How much solar energy are they producing right now in terms of stored energy? Especially when they're spraying the skies like crazy everywhere. We have the same stuff in Florida, and lately our skies have been overcast and cloudy. How much solar are we actually generating? Not to mention, when the bad guys figure out those solar panels are full of silver, and is anybody paying attention to the price of silver today? Hello. They're going to be taking those solar fields apart to go get the silver.
Yeah.
This is incredible. So Chadwick, I want to ask you this. If voters remember only one thing about you, when they walk into the voting booth, what do you want them to think of first that will get them to pull that lever for Chadwick Twillman for District 35 state Senate seat in Michigan?
Yeah, I think this is the overall, this is what I think makes a good senator. And if any senator across America, future or past, would follow these three things, then I believe you would be the best senator possible for the people that you represent. I believe that you should love your job you do, no matter what you do. And we have a lot of people that are confused about what their job is to do, and it's to represent the people and be a servant. They want to be the boss, and they act like the boss, and they don't answer their phone calls. I truly want to be a servant. That's what I'm good at. But to answer your question, I have it written. You can't see it. It's on my top whiteboard, but I have three things written there. And number one, it's to love all neighbors. When I become elected and become your state senator and represent the 270,000 plus residents of District 35, you become my neighbor. And I want to show you my love. How I could show that is by being there for you, listening to you, understanding what you're going through, and being strong enough to take that to Lansing and make sure that they understand that, and that I could work with both sides of the party on these different situations best for us. Number two is to care for the poor. Care for the poor. I think that there's an injustice that people forget about how you made it, maybe how you've gone through your life. And I think everybody, no matter how you've gotten through what you've gone through, you've maybe at some point in your life just needed that hand, just a little bit of help. A lot of us, we have good structured families, that we have a mother or father that when we get really in a pickle, it's like, Mom, I need some help. I need some gas, or, I need some help with the, whatever it may be. We've gone through that, but some people don't have that same ability. And when it's just that one little time they needed a handout, they didn't have it, and it went into a snowball effect maybe. And I think that there's a lot of good people that we could help in that way and get them back on track. And then thirdly is to seek justice.
Yes.
There's too much wrong going on at all levels. I'm jumping here at the local level, and it is bad all the way from corrupt police. I support the police, but there's too many bad apples.
Yeah.
I support the justice system, but uniquely, when I was 20 years old and was arrested for some time, I got to see the other side of it and see that there is a lot of good people that go through the system unjustly. And I think we have accountability for the judges and anybody who has that responsibility to hold judgment or power over others,
Right.
that they're hold to account, and
Right.
everything's transparent.
Well, Chadwick, I appreciate your forthrightness, that the fact that you'd come on here, speak to an international and national audience about this, because the theme is the same. It's restoring accountability. It's bringing back the power of the state legislature to, to basically be the power that be for you and your state. You were talking about politics as local action, as a national impact, cleaning up your backyard. Your backyard has been abandoned. It hasn't had anybody in there to listen to the people, to bring forward the people's issues. This is exactly what you wanted to do. You come forward with a plan, just like our previous guest, Stewart Rhodes, is coming forward with a plan. He knows exactly what he would say to President Trump at the federal level. You know exactly what you want to deliver for your people at the local level. And for that, we can only say thank you for that. And I'd like to just say this much. I endorse you for your candidacy in Michigan's 35th district for state Senate. And I do hope you win. I hope the people in Michigan pay attention to what you're doing. And let not the fact that you've had transgressions in the past be something that you're bringing forward to the future. You've learned lessons on both sides of that, what you were committed for or what you were indicted for, but you also understand the justice system and how it's not just on the end. And I think that's a resounding message we learned from January 6th. So thank you so much for being here, Chadwick. I corrected the lower third to have your name spelled properly. That was an oversight on my behalf, and I do apologize. It's Chadwick Twillman, Twillman. And you can go to his website and support him there. And I'm sure you, Chadwick, people can reach out to you and ask questions if they have further, questions that they need answered. So thank you so much.
My phone number is on the website. Please call me. I'll answer the phone. And Ann, you are you're better than the word patriot. Your journalism, your truth telling, your heart for the truth is so admirable. And I really appreciate you and what you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Chadwick. I appreciate you. All right, everybody. Chadwick, we'll see you later. I want to thank everybody for taking this time here. I'm going to just throw a couple of clips up here because I want you to understand something, that J6 didn't end with the last sentence served. And, this fight continues on. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is we've been told we're watching a show. Doesn't matter who's saying it. But when you look at some of the stuff that's now being uncovered, that's now showing up on X and other places around the internet, it's very telling that the powers that be, the people that have been installed into power, like Biden was installed into power. Some will say Trump was installed into powers, but I think we can debunk that Russia hoax narrative very clearly now, because General Flynn and the evidence that came forth from his trial and the tribulations he went through, not only he, but his family, have proven that all of this has just been a narrative that has been fake, and it has been used and abused to corrupt the mindset and MK Ultra those that have a real issue with the Republican word, and those that have a real issue with the Democrat word. What they should be concerned with is the American word. Who are we as a country? And what we are not is what I'm going to show you on the screen now, because our own government has been displaced by bad actors, and we've allowed ourselves, and the taxpayers have been abused by the folks that we think we elected in power to support bad actors. Like Macron and like Zelensky. So take a look at who these folks were before they actually stepped into and were placed into public office.
All you got is this moment. 21st century's yesterday. You can care all you want. Everybody does, yeah, that's okay, yeah. So slide over here and give me a moment. You know it's awesome raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You're my kind. I need you tonight.
Yeah, it makes you sweat. It makes you sweat bullets. And God forbid we continue down this path with these absolute freaks and jokes that are, running public office. And again, the war is real. The information war is real. And I don't always get it right, but I can tell you one thing: where we're headed right now, without the people steering this ship, is right over a cliff. We're going straight to hell. And, God intended for the people to be free. That much is clear. Read the Bible. It should tell you everything you need to know. Our Constitution defines those freedoms and protects them in the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments, frankly, are all about that. And they have been supplanted and abused by tyranny coming out of corporatocracy, out of U.S. codes that are running this government through agency bureaucracy. Look up the U.S. codes, Title 1 through 51, and you will see that each code there represents an agency by and large. And those agencies are what have unelected bureaucrats that are now making decisions on the behalf of you, the American people. And oh, by the way, your tax dollars. And those agencies are funneling money through non-governmental organizations. And it's a sick, vicious cycle. We've talked about it ad nauseum, as are many other great broadcasters out there doing the same thing. So before you forget that, this show is pretty much fake, you are part of the show. It's called your civic duty. And I'm asking each and every one of you to do that. Pick up your Constitution. I say this almost every single show I do. Pick it up and read it. Read that Declaration of Independence. You'll find that the list of grievances in that Declaration of Independence are the exact same things they're doing to us today, plus more. And that list of grievances is longer than the actual Declaration of Independence. We are now at that alter or abolish moment. And, I agree with Stewart Rhodes. We need to, and I think Chadwick agrees as well, we need the Insurrection Act right now. We need to clean up a lot of these cities where their own, quotes, elected officials are abdicating the responsibilities to protect the people in their states and their counties and their districts. When that's not happening, the federal government, the president, has the right to step in and declare an insurrection. As the evidence was provided by Stewart Rhodes, they used the Insurrection Act to make sure that Black children were safely transported to their schools because they didn't want them being attacked. They're protecting us, the people. So, folks, we're at that alter or abolish moment, and we need some major abolishment of some of the most corrupt agencies, including the most recent stories I've been talking about with MMTLP, the folks that were cheated out of their own wealth because the Securities and Exchange Commission decided to protect the actual industry that they were supposed to be overseeing and regulating because they knew their industry friends on Wall Street were selling shares of stock they never owned. They were basically selling vaporware. And people were buying it by the hundreds of millions of shares. They oversold, and billions was made by Wall Street. But when the people wanted to cash in their shares, oh, no. SEC had FINRA, an independent regulatory authority agency that's not a government agency at all, shut it down, do what's called a U3 halt. This is just one of millions of examples that when you go across all the industries and agencies connected, you will see how the agency protects the industry. It's not designed to help you and protect you. It's designed to protect the agency that it's, quote, regulating and overseeing. What a bunch of bullshit this is. And I'm frankly sick of it. And I know that, I see stuff on X all the time. Most recently, I went to go find the tweet. They took it down. Somebody got smart. But they're placing names like mine and others on lists saying, yeah, we're going to now lawfare you because, you are speaking too much truth. Really? Hey, for those that are considering it, I have got great insurance for that kind of crap. It isn't going to cause me any pain. And I don't own anything. I play the same game the deep state does. And if you're smart, you don't own anything either. So guess what? I am happy, but I'm not going to be a victim to the nonsense that comes out of the people in this government that just don't want the truth to come out. That's the last thing you're going to see me submit to ever. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, deep state. All right, folks, it is now 12:18 Mountain Time. I'm in Colorado. I'll be out here for a while. I'm working from here, helping family with some stuff. I want to say thank you again always for stopping in and spending a little bit of time with me. And I do hope you support people like Stewart Rhodes. I hope you go check out his press conference tomorrow in front of the White House in Lafayette Park at 10 a.m. He'll be there with Ivan Raikland. I will simul stream it for them on all my channels, whether you're watching us on Rumble or on Getter, on X, on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm streaming as many places as I possibly can. And please share this out. I can't do this without you. I appreciate your support and support the sponsors. MyPillow, Mike Lindell, what a guy. And I also have another sponsor that we're going to close the show with, Vandersteel Health. And this is what I use. I travel with it, my superfoods. I think the next time I do a broadcast, I will actually show you the shake and let you see the big green teeth I get after I drink it. It's very healthy. You guys have a great afternoon. Love you all. God bless. Hi, I'm Ann Vandersteel. I want to talk to you a little bit about your health. Part of my daily routine is to get up in the morning and get a little exercise on. If I have time for a mile or 7, doesn't matter. I get out the door every single day. It's important to get my body moving and get that oxygen flowing through my brains.
What is also equally important is what I put in my body after I exercise. I rely on VandersteelHealth.com, where I have a delicious selection of superfoods and other supplements. But first and foremost for me are my superfoods. I have a delicious shake every single day. It is organic, all made in the United States of America, non-GMO, never processed before, dehydrated superfoods. And when they reconstitute with water, milk, or whatever juice you like, it makes a delicious, healthy, plant-based protein supplement. And I say supplement because, frankly, I use this as a meal replacement. This is what's helped me lose the last 20 pounds of COVID. I'm back down to my fighting college weight, fitting in my college clothes, and feeling better than ever. So go to VandersteelHealth.com and get your delicious superfoods. Get on the transformation program with us. It's a 30-day kickoff, and it will get your day starting out great. And watch the weight just fall off. Watch the energy increase, the brain fog lift, and of course the ancillary benefits in your hair, skin, and nails. All these things, you are what you eat. Remember that. Go to VandersteelHealth.com.